Rotary International President-elect Jennifer Jones is the president of Media Street Productions, Inc., a 25-year-old award-winning media company in Windsor, Ontario, and a proud member of the Rotary Club of Windsor Roseland. Her talents have strengthened Rotary's reach and impact through many roles, including as trustee of the Rotary Foundation, RI Vice President, and co-chair of the End Polio Now, Make History Today campaign. Working alongside political figures, celebrities, and global leaders, she uses her voice to raise awareness and hundreds of millions of dollars to eradicate disease, support peace, and provide clean water and sanitation in developing areas of the world. Her skill as an expert storyteller inspires hope and promise and motivates people to take action. Jennifer is a leader in cultivating experiential fundraising opportunities such as Rotary's Polio's Golf Day with Jack Nicklaus in Jupiter, Florida, USA, which raised over $5.25 million for polio eradication in one day, or the innovative virtual COVID-19 Rotary Response event that raised money for COVID-19 relief projects and showcased Rotary's response across the globe. She has received many honors and recognitions, including Rotary Service Above Self Award and the Citation for Meritorious Service, the YMCA Peace Medallion, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal, and Wayne State University's Peacemaker of the Year Award, a first for a Canadian. We are so proud to call her a member and past district governor of District 6400. Please join me in welcoming Rotary International President-elect Jennifer Jones and my friend. Over to you, Brenda.
Thanks, Aruna. I'd like to introduce Mr. Michael McGovern, past Rotary International Vice President. He is a very, very busy and talented man, I have to tell you. He was asked to join Rotary in 1986 as a member of Rotary Club of South Portland, Cape in the state of Maine, where he quickly served on many club leadership roles and then ultimately club president. Mike, as he is known, then went on to lead District 7780 as their district governor in 2003 and 2004. Mike has served in the capacity as a chair of the Rotarian Action Group, international training leader, RI committee chair and member, trustee and vice chair of the Rotary Foundation, and director and vice president of Rotary International. Whew, what a lot of stuff there. He has also served in numerous other positions at the district, zone, and international levels, and has attended 5, probably 6 now, councils of legislation in various roles. He currently serves as a chair of the International Polio Plus Committee and represents Rotary on the Polio Strategy Committee of the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. It is my honor and my pleasure that I welcome Mr. Mike McGovern, current International Polio Plus Committee Chair. Welcome, Mike. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you to everyone. It is our honor and privilege to be able to be here with all of you tonight. Aruna and Brenda, thank you so much for your incredible leadership as the joint governors or the governors jointly of our 2 districts, woo woo. And thank you for your very, very warm and kind introductions. I do want to recognize both Roma and Sue for the incredible work that you've put into putting this event on this evening. To Ashish and to Rick, thank you for your work as our district foundation chairs and everything that you've done to take us to the point that we are tonight. This is a wonderful privilege for us, ladies and gentlemen, to be able to have the opportunity to talk to Mike McGovern this evening. And it is my privilege to be able to interview him, to cull out of him some of the amazing gems of what's going on in the polio world right now, and where exactly we are in the status of crossing the finish line. So we're going to have a conversation for the next little while, and then I believe that we're going to open it up for a little bit. But Mike and I are going to have a chance to have a little bit of a chit chat before we do that. Mike, I want to cut right to the chase. I'm going to get back into some of your leadership roles, et cetera. But there is one thing that I think is on top of mind for me, and I want everyone to understand. Yesterday was a pretty big day for polio eradication in the world, was it not? And can you shed a little bit of light on what yesterday meant?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Good to be with everyone. Yesterday, yeah, it was a good day, and it was a day I have to admit I was very nervous about. After 3 years, all of Afghanistan was opened up to the ability to vaccinate children once again. About 3 years ago, in the areas that the Taliban controlled, they weren't allowing vaccinations at all, and that was of concern. And then, it was also of concern that, well, the Taliban's taking over the country. What's going to happen? The good news is that, beginning particularly in January of this past year, UNICEF and WHO engaged with the Taliban out of their offices in Doha and established a good relationship. They also were doing it on the local level with some of the Taliban leaders. They weren't doing against the government, but those discussions led to the Taliban very early on in mid-August indicating they wanted to continue the polio program. They wanted to do it with the active participation of women, and that they saw it as something that was necessary to do for their children. So a couple of weeks ago, they announced that November 8th would be the day that they'd resume immunizations. Initially, it was thought that it would all be house to house. As it turns out, a lot of it is what they call mosque to mosque. People need to go to different places, but there was also some house to house. And and it started off a little bit slowly, but it's continuing. And as I began, I said I was very nervous about it. One of the issues we have in Afghanistan is while the Taliban is now running the country, responsible, we still have a group called ISIS around, and it has a particular name in Afghanistan, and they don't like the Taliban, and they've attacked polio workers at different times over the last year. Some things that the Taliban sometimes get blamed for, but it wasn't them. So yesterday, yeah, it was a good day. I posted a picture on Facebook of a young woman immunizing a child in Kabul, overlooking the city. It must have been on some apartment porch or something. But it's just wonderful to see, and and it's anchored too by even though we had those areas inaccessible, thankfully before that, a lot of work was done by Rotary and its partners, and we sort of got ahead of the virus. And COVID, the lack of movement also helped to squelch out the virus a bit in Afghanistan. So it was a good day.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about COVID in just a couple of minutes, because obviously the relationship between COVID and polio is completely linked. But even in the early days in middle to end of August, when we were seeing the Taliban government take over in Afghanistan, one of the posts I remember you putting out was of the rotary wheel. I believe it was you, the rotary wheel on the side of a cooler bag, that polio immunization workers were in the field, even in the midst of the insanity, for lack of a better term, that was going on in the country at that time as people were fleeing. The government was changing hands. But through it all, the rotary wheel was there. It was making this difference. And one of the things that I know I've said a couple of times, and it feels a little weird sometimes to say, but we've been united behind a different enemy, the enemy of polio. And they don't want their kids to be sick either. So tell us a little bit about those early moments, because when you put that out, that really, it touched me.
Yeah, and Jen, that particular photo was like of a roadside immunization stand, up in your country of Canada. it's like having a Tim Hortons, and you stop by, and the United States, it would be one of many different places. But yeah, it was just along the side of the road. It was very primitive, sort of a hut. And the very day when we're looking at all those events at the airport, there is the rotary wheel with kids being immunized, to stopping vehicles passing by, and wow, it's looks like it's going to happen that same day. And I didn't post it for security reasons, but Mohammed Ishaq Niazman, who's our polio chair, Rotary volunteer in Afghanistan, he is involved in helping to run a school in the town of Jalalabad. And when all of this was happening, he sends me an email, and he posts a picture of himself and some local leaders and the Taliban leaders, some of them with their guns over their shoulders outside the school that is primarily for girls. And the Taliban came there to tell them they wanted the school to continue. They were very supportive. They were very supportive of polio. And I was a little worried it might have been some propaganda, so I didn't post it. Plus the security of the folks. But everything that we've seen, indicates that they want to work with us. And the Rotary Wheel can be a part of it. And I also really want to give a lot of credit to UNICEF and the World Health Organization for opening the doors to make it happen. Hamid Jaffrey, who Jen, has been particularly involved in various different meetings with health authorities. Dr. Tedros, the head of the World Health Organization, was the first international visitor welcomed by the government of any international visitor in Afghanistan, and he as well helped to smooth the way to what happened yesterday.
Well, Mike, it's incredible, and I hope everyone who's watching and listening understands the privilege of understanding this information that we're getting firsthand. This is not through a newspaper. We're not reading the New York Times. We're not reading, any other news source that you want in the world. You're hearing from someone who is real-time living exactly this. And Mike, I got to tell you that the day that Dr. Tedros, head of the WHO, landed in Afghanistan, he tweeted it. And there was a photo, I'm sure you're familiar with, of him walking across the tarmac toward some of the Taliban leaders and them meeting each other. And it just spoke such volumes to me of who we are as an organization, with the partners that we are united with in getting this job done. We started this. I mean, our organization started this. We can lay claim to this, but we're not going to achieve victory without the partners who are side by side with each of us. So let's talk a little bit about those partners. The WHO and UNICEF really sort of instrumental in making sure that from the frontline perspective, we're getting down to the front lines. Give me a little bit of intel on how you see that.
Both organizations, work in country. They have country directors. They have staffs in the most countries. And obviously, they have headquarters, UNICEF in the U.S. and WHO in Geneva. But they're fully involved, fully engaged. I actually serve on a committee called the Polio Oversight Board right now, and we had even during the pandemic the last few years, Tedros has never missed a meeting. We had a meeting a week or two ago, and Tedros, it was over 4 hours, 4.5. Tedros was on the whole time. Henrietta Fore, the head of UNICEF, was on the whole time. Rochelle Walensky, who's the head of CDC, was on the whole time. Gavi, the outfit that's trying to get the COVID vaccines to the poorer countries, he was on. And it just reinforces to me, and obviously Chris Elias from the Gates Foundation, it just reinforced to me the partners, how they have a lot of different things, but they're with us, and they all give credit to Rotary. They know that we're instrumental. We're instrumental in advocacy. But it's mainly the spirit of Rotarians. The passion that they have and the devotion they have, and it's I don't mean to name drop, but even during the worst of the pandemic, I would get a phone call from the head of the CDC, back during the Trump administration, and similarly since Rochelle Walensky has taken over, and we'll have one-on-one phone calls that they initiate to talk about polio. And it's not, they don't want to talk to me. They want to talk to the representative of Rotary. And, it's very impressive. Jen, yourself, you were invited to go in a couple of weeks. UNICEF is having this big gala in New York, UNICEF USA. And, Jennifer was not only invited, but she was invited to sit at the table with the head of UNICEF USA, the person putting on the event. And, that again says something about Rotary, but they're in the field, they're on the street, they're working with the government to make sure that the monies that we give, and it was $150 million last year, that the monies we spent are well spent. There's no funny business going on with money getting diverted. It's all electronic payments, including to the frontline workers, and WHO, UNICEF oversee that. Gates is intimately involved. They're actually the #1 contributor right now. They're investing $400 million a year into polio eradication, of which $100 million they give to Rotary for us to allocate, and then they invest another $300 million. So all the partners are fully engaged.
So I'm going to bust you just a little bit, my friend. He's giving me props for being invited to New York to attend the UN event, of which he was invited and gave up his seat for me to attend. So thank you for that. And I will do my best to represent us well. But it is a relationship, a long-standing relationship that we've had. And one of the things, and maybe stepping just aside for a second, then coming back to polio, but one of the things, Mike, maybe you can address this a little bit, is the incredible nature of partnerships and the trust that we develop with each other. And that polio has been a conduit for us to be able to touch these different organizations. And let's just talk about UNICEF for a second in particular, that we've been able to take that not only into that polio sphere, but we're now being able to branch it out into malaria and to other immunizations in other parts of the world. And the importance of those kinds of relationships for us as an organization. I think that polio has taught us so much, and it's the tip of the iceberg in terms of where I think that we can go. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Working with both UNICEF and WHO, it's the reason I'm not going to that dinner, other than I thought you were a much better representative, is that the week before I'm going to be in Pakistan. I'm going to be in Islamabad meeting with the other partners, and I wanted to quarantine after I got back to just be on the safe side. But while we're in Islamabad, one of the things that's going on is there's a polio national immunization day. It's the last 2 weeks of November, but it's being billed as for measles and rubella as well. We've always tried, and we're giving vitamin A drops, but we've always tried to work with those. But it's the first national attempt in Pakistan, particularly to address rubella, which is the old German measles, and is the #1 cause of preventable childbirth defects in the world. And so we've always called it polio plus. And there's obviously there's been great progress with polio, down to the 2 cases, only 2 wild polio virus cases this year. But I think people forget, like with measles, there's been 20 million cases of measles since the year 2000. And while we don't provide the vaccines for those other things, the polio staff has been engaged in Africa, engaged in Afghanistan, Pakistan, all along with helping with the measles and rubella programming, helping others. And it just seems to be coming to a really good point when we're actually having a joint immunization day. And, while, we do see an end to polio, we're not, we're not going to just automatically morph this program into something else. There's going to be lots of other ideas and suggestions. But, while we're fully at it, it's just nice to know that we're adding that plus.
Well, and the polio infrastructure, which you've alluded to, that exists in more than 70 countries that we and our partners have been responsible for forming, not only are tackling what you just said, the rubella and Ebola. When we had the Ebola outbreak in Nigeria, that was the same infrastructure that helped to shut that down. But let's shift over now to COVID for a second, and what that same infrastructure has done on the front lines in order to be able to help us not only in some areas contain, but be able to do surveillance, be able to utilize as a frontline, to utilize our frontline workers in order to combat not only polio, but COVID. What is the impact that you've seen in particular with our COVID efforts through the polio eradication lens, the infrastructure lens?
You know, it's unbelievable. Although it is believable, the infrastructure that we have on the ground, the staffs, the health places, health centers we fund, and all those different things. Without those, there would be no what they call surveillance. There would be no, when someone comes down with COVID, where do they go? A lot of the places where people went initially in Africa were places that were funded by the Polio Plus and by Rotary. It was we did survey the laboratories we have where the fecal samples go to determine if something's a polio case. Those were all converted to also serve as COVID laboratories to help identify COVID cases. In Pakistan, when I was actually there with Holger Kanak, last year's president of Rotary, Ravi Ravindran, in February of 2020, and they took us to a call center. Well, that call center became the COVID call center. It's still serving for polio, but it was stepped in to do so much more. We also visited all the refrigerators where they store vaccines. Some of those were converted temporarily to COVID refrigerators, so they had the ability to put the vaccines at the right temperatures. But all of that infrastructure was in place. It provided the background, the help, and the personnel also did training on personal protective equipment, on sanitation. They provided hand soaps and the different sanitizers, all those things. When we looked at it a few months ago, it was estimated $100 million of polio funds were spent toward COVID. And of that, Rotary, if you look at an overall percentage, the budget was $15 million. And we had a meeting of the Polio Oversight Board maybe 2 months ago. And there was a proposal to ask for that money back, to recapture it. And it had come from a recommendation from another leading committee. And, I spoke up and said, I don't want that money back. I think Rotarians are proud of what we did to help with COVID. We've always called it Polio Plus. And you know what? They need that money to buy vaccines for COVID for other people. So, I don't want it back. And, it was about $15 million. And I think I didn't check with anyone in Rotary, but, hopefully I understand Rotarians well enough to know that, we come together, we eradicate polio, but when, there's, all those people dying of COVID, we can't look the other way. We can't, I didn't want to claw the money back. And, I've told a few, I don't think you knew that, Jen, but I've told a few folks that happened. But, that's what we do as Rotary. We help, and I never get Shekhar's theme right, but, serving to change lives or something, whatever it is, that's us. That's what we do. And, I think the polio program has to be an exemplar in doing that. And, I think, the more things we do to build goodwill, the better cooperation we're going to get from everyone to get the polio eradicated.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And I know that everyone who just listened to what you said, I'm going to challenge people to put a woo-woo in the chat room. And I want to see a little flurry of woo-woos, because I believe that the kind of thinking that you just espoused is exactly the kind of thinking that puts us at the forefront of the leadership efforts that we have here. And they're weighing in alongside. One of the things, Mike, you talk about the money that you were just referencing. And, our friends on the call here, many who are incredible donors to our foundation, in particular with polio, understood that the COVID pandemic was something that we also needed. Look at that flying by. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for giving them props and supporting the thinking. The COVID pandemic, though, we were able to put more than $38 million onto the front line, outside of the money that you just referenced, in terms of personal protective equipment, surveillance, Food security. I know that there's a question about food security I'm going to come to in a couple of minutes and ask you about that. But that was money that our Rotarians put into our foundation. That it was able to transmit directly into the front line, into being able to get to people to make sure that we were taking care of business. But one of the things, that it makes me reflect upon and think is that's what went through our foundation in real time. How much more did people just put into their communities, because that's what we do. And the amount of money, $38 million and the $15 million, those are all huge sums of money, but they probably pale in comparison to what we put into our communities just because we knew we had to do the right thing at the right moment. And around the world, I venture to guess that it's probably hundreds of millions of dollars that our organization, our members, the people who are on this call, made sure went to the front lines. And I think nights like tonight are nights where we get a chance to say thank you. Thank you for the kind of leadership that everyone provides, for understanding with your woo-woos that, Mike's decision-making is something that represents us all, and that we're all in this together to serve humanity, to make our world a better place. Mike, you mentioned, and I wasn't sure whether to bring it up or not, because I wasn't sure from a security standpoint whether it should be something mentioned, but the trip to Pakistan that you're going on, tell us a little bit about what you anticipate in terms of what your engagement will be in this upcoming trip.
Yeah, it's, first we're having a meeting in Geneva. I'm leaving for there next Monday. I'll be meeting with the strategy committee. Carol Pandak, who's on the Rotary staff, will be there as well. And, that will help to get us updated on all the different issues. Then some of us, Carol isn't going, but some of us from the different partners are going on to Pakistan. We're going to Islamabad. We're going to Karachi. And Rotary doesn't know this, but I'm also going to Peshawar. And WHO is providing the security, so that's good. Aziz Memon will be at all those places with me. He's the polio chair, Rotary volunteer from the country. But, while we're there, we're meeting with the government, we're meeting with the health secretary, we're visiting the emergency operation centers where they control it all. We're actually going out to see the measles, rubella, and polio vaccines being provided, which will be a lot of fun. We're meeting with the regional chief ministers from some of the different provinces. And then, and the highlight of it, I suppose, is, although maybe not the most important, is we're meeting with the prime minister, a guy by the name of Imran Khan, he's been very supportive of the program, but to thank him and to urge, they're so close. The environmental samples, show there isn't much polio. And, there was a report last year and people say, are the numbers accurate? And we had a group, look at the surveillance, and they led by someone from the Gates Foundation. And they said there's a high likelihood that current low level of polio virus detection is accurate. A high likelihood that the low level is accurate. They also said, though, that, we just can't miss this opportunity. We are so low, and it's just, we could still get, we still have a lot of nervousness. We could still get some cases, but, we need to do it. And the whole purpose of this trip is to show support for the Pakistani government for what they have been able to accomplish over the last couple of years. I told Aziz that I don't want to meet with Rotary groups because of COVID. I don't want people coming together. But at the same time, we'll be meeting with a few Rotarians while we're there as well. So I'm looking forward to the trip. It's the first time I've been out of my basement, it seems, in a couple of years. In fact, it's kind of a bookend. The last trip was with Holger and Ravi to Pakistan. But it's you need, particularly when you're investing $150 million of Rotary money, and it's not all in Pakistan, but it's where we've invested $308 million over the years there. You gotta have the comfort level that things are going right. And I've been there 5 or 6 times, and I didn't have that once. And I came back and expressed some concerns, and some changes were made with the leadership of the program there in Pakistan. So that's an example. The partnership listens. Michelle Zaffron, who, I told him he had to get over there and see what was going on, and he was there within 2 weeks. And, so these visits are important. And, I'm looking forward to seeing Aziz, trustee of the Rotary Foundation, and seeing some other Rotary friends. But mainly, I think I'm most looking forward to seeing those measles and rubella shots.
Yeah.
Because, as Mike McCullough says, it's not about the money. It's about what we do with it.
Yeah, no, so true. As you know, I have a trip at some point in the relatively near future to Pakistan to visit Imran Khan as well, the Prime Minister, and it should be presumably after 2023, or the start of, well, not after 2023, in the 22-23 year. But the importance of that window is that delivering on our promise, the new strategic plan for polio puts 2023 as the end of transmission potentially for polio. If that indeed happens, that means that 2026, the 3 years that follow that, will be the 3 years till we can get to certification. How confident are you feeling about that?
I'm nervous about it.
I know, we all are, but it sure is looking good.
It could even be advanced by 2 years.
Yeah.
The last cases could have been in January.
Yeah.
So we could, we may be ahead of the goals, but we had a meeting with Tunji today in Nigeria, and we have the wild polio virus. We also have these vaccine-derived cases, and 80% of them in the last 6 months have been in Nigeria. So, we had some discussions of different interventions we can do there to help, working with our partners, maybe even engaging Bill Gates himself to make some things happen. But, there's a lot of things that need to go right, but there's still things that could go wrong. And, I was a town manager for 31 years. The person ran a Cape Elizabeth, Maine. The day-to-day operations, and you could do 99 things right, but they remember the one thing that went wrong. And that was good training for the position I'm in now. Thankfully we got so many Rotarians devoted to polio, but all of us need to look for that 1% that could go wrong and make sure we try to stop it. So I'm reasonably confident, but I still grind my teeth.
I think we all sit on a bit of a pincushion as we want to make sure that we cross that finish line. Mike, we only have 2 or 3 minutes left before we turn over to another part of the program. And you touched on something just a second ago, and it's an important point that at least was a teachable moment for me recently, and I think is a really good one for our friends who are on the call, talking about vaccine-derived cases. And I didn't quite understand the full scope of what that meant until recently. And that basically and validate that I'm saying this correctly, when we give a vaccine to a child, it's not that they contract polio, they're immunized. But when they defecate, there is still polio that runs into the sewage system, into a child who isn't immunized. They receive a lesser case, but still nonetheless a case. Am I putting that together accurately?
You were right until the very end.
Okay.
And it is true. The folks who are picking up these circulating vaccine-derived cases aren't the ones that get the vaccine. They're ones that don't get immunized at all. They have very low levels of immunity, right, and they're picking it up. The one place where you went a little astray was at the end, where the cases of people who get the vaccine-derived polio are just as serious and potentially damaging as those who get the wild polio virus.
Okay.
At the level of the people we serve, the kids, it's the exact same. It's exact same outcomes, sadly.
Well, I think the main takeaway message from all of that is to understand the efficacy of vaccines and making sure and ensuring, whether we're talking tonight about polio, whether we're talking about COVID, we're talking about rubella, we're talking about a varied group of vaccines that are helping to save people on our planet. And for the work that you're doing to move us forward, I cannot, on behalf of every single person on this call tonight, say thank you from the bottom of my heart for your leadership, for your legacy. I know you will deny that you have one, but you do, for working with the partners the way that you have been able to, for putting the best of Rotary forward into the world. You are a hero, you are a champion, and you are one of us. And we could not be more pleased that you were able to be our special guest here at this dual zone or dual district, I should say, event this evening. So Mike McGovern, I love you.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. What you said was most accurate. I am one of us. It's truly an us. And, I fell into this position in very odd ways and, trying to do my best, but, it all works because, people give money, people have the passion, and, we work with great partners and we don't give up. We're going to get done. So it's been fun, and thank you.
Well, thank you for your incredible nature and your kindness. Sue,
Well,
over to you.
and Jennifer and Mike, thank you to both of you. Wow, what a lot of great information, a lot of great inspiration. I know that with great leaders like the two of you, working so hard as you are, that we're going to cross that finish line really soon. So at this time, I'm going to ask everyone on the call, Liz is going to help unmute us, and we're going to give a District 6380, 6400 big woohoo. And thank you guys for all your
Good job, everybody.